Okay boys, I'm going to try, if I can, produce a page of designs in about 15 to 20 minutes. And whilst I'm doing that, go through with you what exactly you need to do on a page like this. What I'm looking at is iterations. I'm looking at the development of one design to another design, to another design, to another design, to another design. And so how one design affects the next design is sort of really important part of the process. So what do you need? You need, I like a very sharp pencil, and where possible, I like a long pencil. So that one is the one I'm going to choose because it's got a nice sharp point. You can see I've got a variety of them, and I like to sharpen them. I might also at some point start using a pen as well. These pens are quite good fun as well. They leave a nice dark mark. First of all, I'm going to title my electronic, my piece of paper, electronic casing. And you can see immediately what I'm doing as I'm moving the piece of paper to suit me. I'm drawing on a book today, and the reason for that is it makes it quite easy. If I want to put something like a border on here, I can just follow that edge of the book. And so when I'm doing a line, if it's parallel to an edge, it's really easy to just bang in there. It also just, you see, there we go, last one. So what am I looking for? I'm looking for probably the development of about 3 to 4 ideas. I'm going to start off with thinking about design and just thinking about a shape. I'm going to move that so that it's nicer for you to see. So just thinking about something quite simple, but how could that design, how could that be the sort of product that we want? How can I develop that, I suppose? All right, well, let's have a look. Maybe what I could do is I could look at making it a lot wider, not as high. Maybe what I could do is start splitting it up. So this drops down onto, and we can start using our drawing skills that Miss Crawford taught us, onto a square base. If we want to take that further, what we could think is, okay, what about, should we get rid of that? What about taking that a little bit further? What about if the actual top of this was on a slant? And you can imagine some sort of display here, couldn't you? So all of a sudden, from just messing around, we started to get the basis of a product. I think that's probably at slightly the wrong angle there. And that could be, maybe that could be 2 7-segment displays on there. Just going to really rough that in, 98. And so finally I'm wondering, okay, what about if we did have that? Could that morph down onto a square base? I'm finding this really tricky to draw. I'm moving it now just so it's a little easier. And to be quite frank, I think that looks absolutely shocking. And that definitely is not an idea I particularly like. But you can see how we've taken one shape. At one point we made it long and we introduced another shape here. We've put this at an angle. Just a little bit of colouring in there, just going to darken down those edges. We made that into an angle, put a little display on there. And then we've finally gone for a sort of a mixture of all of them. But as I said, I wasn't particularly fussed with that at all. So let's take it somewhere else. Let's go on to a new idea. So what about if I look at something like a triangle? A triangle, there we go. Let's just bang a triangle in there. And a triangle is a sort of odd shape, especially for a casing design. And whilst we're thinking about what we're going to do next, there's no reason why we don't go back to previous drawings and just work on those for a little bit, just to make sure that what we're doing looks nice. I'm just gonna, when you're penciling in the line, you want to make sure that bottom one, this line here, is nice and dark. But can you see that when I draw, I don't do this thing where a lot of blog boys do. They do this sort of sketchy line going from the first point. I make sure that I know where my points are and then just try and join those points with one line, then maybe go over it. And when I first start it, I start with quite a soft line, and then I'll go over it and over it and over it in its entirety again until I'm getting quite a nice dark line. So what we could have here, if we just break that down, we could have a couple of 7 segments in there maybe. We could have some buttons. I just don't know if I particularly like that as a, I'm sort of wondering whether it would be better to have something a little bit more like that. And so we had a flat top to it, and I'm just going to shade in that side now. Would that be better? Again, I'm not sure how much it lends itself to a casing, but it's great that I've thought about it. It's great that I've included that as something that I'm thinking about. And so if we sort of go back to this idea, which did have something about it, and I'm just going to start to just get out a bit further, and we can start to use our 2-point perspective skills here. What about if we were to amalgamate the two ideas, and so we had something like that? Is that something that may be better? Again, I'm sort of thinking it's an odd shape, isn't it? It's an odd shape. However, you know, you could have your different displays down there. You might be able to have a speaker on the top if that's what you need. And then you could have maybe some bigger buttons on the bottom there. Yeah. Again, that bottom, where it meets the ground, that wants to be darker. I'm going to just cross hatch. And you can see that we're getting a little bit more body with that. I always think it's quite good fun to put a number in. 76 or something. All right, so we've come up with an idea. I like these two designs. Oh, I'm getting a bit far up. I like this design quite a lot. And I'm wondering whether we could develop this a bit more so that could we sort of come up, as opposed to going up to this flat piece on the top, which I don't think is very successful. I don't know, maybe we just go straight up like that. But the great thing about this, that isn't nice, because can you see as we're getting further away, we're getting wider. So that's incorrect, the way I've drawn that. I've just got to make sure those lines get narrower as they get away. Okay, so don't need that line in there. Could rub it out, but I can't be bothered, to be honest with you. And that comes up to quite a point at the top, doesn't it? And with this, maybe there's a massive button in the middle. What you can do with buttons like that as well, you can just put a line over them to make them look a little bit rounded. I hope you can see that. Okay, cool. So remember that line on the bottom wants to be darker. There we go. And then have a think of, right, what's going on along here? So maybe there's some sort of matrix, LED matrix maybe. It could even be set in, couldn't it? Slightly. There we go. It's not bad. Anything else? Well, that looks pretty good. You could think about putting it on some feet. Looks a bit like a till or a cash register, doesn't it? A little bit odd. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bang in that side, and then probably after I've done that, I'm just going to make angles a little bit better. So we've got an idea going on there, and you can see how that's developed from one to the other. And I suppose if I was to do one last one, I'm going to shift the angle now. I could look at something a bit more like that. And so we're getting rid of this bottom skirt, which is slightly odd. That could be an idea going forward. Or could there be an idea? I'm not too sure how this is going to draw, to be honest with you. Something like that. A bit like if we were to have a tube and then we were just to chop through it like that. Or I suppose it'd actually be more like that. And say this whole section becomes the face of our product. And doing little drawings, smaller drawings, is always good. Am I doing for time? 12 minutes, a couple left. All right, so we've done a triangle, we've done like a circular. Should we just do one which is, let's think about that as more of a square. Naturally, people, they gravitate towards that sort of design, and you can understand why. It's because very easy or easily, you can put different bits on this, put a speaker in there or something. And okay, so if we're going to do that, there's no reason then, whilst if we're just going to alter the perspective here, and I'm going from the other way now, we don't drop it down a lot more, make it a bit deeper, or even okay, so I've done that one, so it's deeper there. But then I start to think, well, why not if we were to raise the back here and have that back, just putting a line through there so it's parallel with these two. And then what I'm doing is just dropping a line down. And so what I've got is this sort of curved front going on here. Can you see that? I'm just going to put two lines at the top. Okay, I shouldn't really have that. That should, I did have a rubber around here somewhere. There he is, my pot. So really that shouldn't be there. So you can start to see now that we've got that shape. So effectively, and the reason I'm doing this now is just because I've got a bit of white space and I'm explaining, but it just gets rid of that white space, yeah? And so I'm just doing a little side elevation there of what can you see over there? Yeah, you can. And of course what I can do is just colour it in a little bit. So there, and you can see how that relates to that. And of course, as I always say, put that bottom line nice and dark. Okay, as we keep on going through, what I could do with this, and I hadn't thought about previously, is if and this is going to be a little bit difficult. Oh no, I think it should be fine. What about if I tapered it? And when I taper it, I'm going to get rid of that, and I'm going to move it, because I'm looking to use this space here actually. But if I was to taper something, could I then raise the back there? So as it comes down, it sort of flares out, is a question. But what I've done with this, I've tapered it so much, you actually don't see the side really. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do exactly that, but I think what I'm going to do is look at, no, I'm going to go down like that. That's it. I'm going to getting a bit excited here with my lines. This has turned into a right dog's dinner, isn't it? So I'm going to rub that out. Okay, let's just start again. Be a bit more controlled over it. If that's the base, what I'm looking to do is I'm looking to taper that base in. And if I taper that base in, is it possible as well to sort of come up at a taper? So we're looking at something more like that. Can you see that? I'm not a great fan of the rubber, but this, just having a little trouble with this. So I'm just getting rid of those lines that are going to be probably confusing you. I'm quite liking that as a shape, you know. And then, of course, what we could have on that is maybe, you know, let's have a segment. You could even have a sensor. Maybe a bit of a speaker, old-fashioned type speaker. And then maybe a few buttons down the bottom. I'm quite liking that as a design. And then I suppose the only last one, which I'm gonna have sort of trouble drawing, I think, is if we were to make this much more egg-shaped. What I'm suggesting is that this narrows as it gets further away, but I'm having a bit of trouble drawing that. So you can see that, you know, I'm not the best draftsman in the world, but just really have some fun with these. And then you've got a page full at 18 minutes, a bit late, full of designs. And that's really what I want to see from you, chaps. A page full of designs, a couple of those. Just look at different casing designs. And if you gave me that, I would be so pleased. So pleased, because that is a lovely page. All right, I'm going to upload this to probably YouTube because of the size of it, and then we can take it from there. All right, cheers, boys.